Hi there, my name's Jim, this is my shed and you're welcome to it. And welcome back. Obviously my plans for getting a video out quite quickly after the last one came to nothing. You know, family life, kids' birthday parties and that sort of thing get in the way, but the car is finally stripped and ready to get on with some more interesting stuff. When I came to put the footage together, I realised I've got basically about 2 hours of my arse looking at the camera while I'm bent over the car taking the engine out. That may or may not be of interest to some people, but I think I'll skip over that. So I'll just do a brief montage of the big bits coming off the car. So I mean, stripping a car down, how interesting can that be? But then once that's done, I'll have a sit in the car with a few bits and pieces and just chat about sort of rough order of play, what I'm going to do. And then after that, I thought just for a bit of fun, I would have a look at a glorious failure from my past, alluded to in the title of the video, but we'll have a chat about that later. So without further ado, let's crack on. So here we are on a lovely rainy morning, getting started on stripping the car down. As I record this, I've just finished watching Home Built by Jeff and him starting on his F600 car transporter build, and I'm struck by a few things. First, I'm more than a little bit jealous of the climate in Australia. Could do with a bit more of that here. I'm also more than a bit jealous of the amount of space he's got, but I'm not at all jealous of the fact that the car he's working on is twice as old as this one, and he's got one or two more rusty nuts to deal with than I'm going to have to do, and a bit more bodywork. I hate bodywork. And yeah, this was the entire exhaust system. No wonder it was a bit loud. I also wasn't very happy about having to drain 2 litres of perfectly good gearbox oil that had done about 200 miles. The price of gearbox oil these days, sacrilege.
Oh gosh, what's going on here?
After a considerable amount of faffing about, I managed to get the drive shaft out, which meant that I could then lower the engine down with a view to pulling off the gearbox. What you need to do is lower the. I've got the engine here. That's it. Perfect. Go on, just like that. That's it. Got it. Well done.
Yes!
And sorry, sight. Engine just waiting to be picked up in the morning. Moving on to the interior, getting the seats out first. Still playing with camera angles, trying to figure out what works best. I guess if you want to look at the top of my head, this is the best angle. I actually got a bit lucky with the doors. It turns out that they unbolt from inside the door, so the fact that I could only open it about a foot didn't make it impossible to take out at all, so I count that as a win. Watching this back, I'm quite alarmed at how much everything's wobbling around when I'm trying to get the steering wheel off. It doesn't feel that flexible when you're driving it. And watching this really does bring home why the car is as light as it is. They really are very, very flimsy parts. I've had this Mac swivel head ratchet for about 30 years and it must be one of my favourite tools. It's just so satisfying to use. I've got a rechargeable impact driver, but I just don't see any point in using it. It's just something very satisfying about using hand tools. After an awful lot of faffing about, I realised that the final 2 fixings for the upper the dash panel were underneath the scuttle panel outside the car. Once I got those off, it sort of came off all right, but as you can see from the pictures, it was still a bit tight and pulled some of the trim with it when it came. And right now I'm thinking, I'm too old for this. Of course there's still coolant inside the heater. Answers on the postcard please. Should I refit the sound deadening or not? Is the few kilos weight saving worth the extra noise, or should I just admit that I'm getting a little bit old? And so here we are inside the car, all stripped out. Mainly going to leave the wiring intact as much as I can, work around it, but immediate problems come to light. My plan was to move the heater matrix over with everything else, but then when you look at the size of this thing, there's no way that's moving anywhere, so I'm going to have to not use this and get a small kit car style one and get some very neat little ones that will do the job. And I'm only going to keep the demist and probably the side demists, maybe the vents, so the others will still be in place, but I won't connect those up. So moving on to what metal work need to do. Obviously, if the pedals are going to go here, the tunnel has to go, so that's quite an easy job. Just cut out, weld in a flat section, and then I'll be able to move the pedals across. This part of the floor I initially thought was a strengthening member for the chassis, but looking at it I suspect it's just a mount for the seats. So I'll be able to cut this whole piece out. If I look between my legs, you lucky people, this has obviously got to go because this is where the seat's going to be, roughly. So I'm not sure whether I should just cut this out, cut the whole section of floor all the way back to here, and then just make it flat all the way, or do it, as in my initial thought was, I'd just start from here, taper down to the floor, and then have that flat straight across, and then have a cut out section back here, but then that'll mean I'll only have a little bit like this in front of the seat, and it doesn't really seem a lot of point. So I might just cut out the whole thing, but we'll have a look at that. That's for another day. And then if we move to the back, excuse me, if we move to the back, we can see my initial plan was just to get these seats in here somehow, but if you look, you won't be able to see, but they're not sitting right. There's a lot of wasted space here as well. So I figured if I remove the part of this that's the mounting section, so just cut this section off so that this part can then sit in this well lower down. That'll make the seat fit much better. It'll mean I'll have to mount it more sort of cart style, so drill through the sides and mount it, and then probably have off the roll cage structure behind some support for the top of the seat, because obviously cutting this bit off, we're going to lose a lot of the strength of the seat, so it's just going to be the shell left, so it'll need a bit more support than it might otherwise, but I think that'll work. And if that's cut away, that'll sit nicely, as I say, nicely down in that well, and it'll sit in a perfect place. Sit a little bit further forward than that as well than it would otherwise. Roll cage over the top. Job's a good one, I think. So what I'll tackle first? I think the first job to tackle will be getting the rollover bar and these seats in, and then gradually move forward through the car. I'm also going to have some door bars, so from the roll hoop, just running forwards to go as close as I can to the front subframe mounting points to tie all that together better. When I do that, I'll do this one first, because obviously this door is not really any use in terms of access, I mean. So I'll be able to do that bar first, and then this one I'll leave till one of the later jobs when everything else is done, and that bar can go in, because otherwise I'll have to be climbing in and over it when I get done. So in terms of order of play, I think first thing we're going to do is get these seats roughly mounted, or at least cut away so they can sit more closely to where we want them, and then make the roll hoop to go over the top. So yeah. Okay, so that's the general plan going forward. So I thought I'd just briefly take you onto a project that I had years and years ago. I'd actually forgotten about it, but I visited an old workplace recently, and they were clearing out drawers of old stuff, and they found some of the things I made when I was working there. My brief for this particular, well, let me go back a step. So in this place, it's a traditional, I won't mention the company name or anything, but it's a very traditional Old English workshop with lots of handmade craftsmen. And in order to fit parts together, they actually use smoke black. So they light a lamp, put smoke on the parts they want to fit together, touch them together. Where they touch, they can see the blacks. They're basically using it like engineer's blue, but they use lamps. The factory director, who I was working for at the time, wanted to make this a more streamlined process. Didn't want them using lighters and things, and wanted some extraction for the fumes. So he wanted what he called a smoke black services unit, which would basically give them somewhere to light their smoke lamps, and then extract fumes from the work area. So I came up with a little box with a relay in it and a timer, so that you know, press the button, turns a fan on through a little charcoal filter for I don't know, a couple of minutes, whatever it might be, just long enough for them to do their job, and then it would turn off again automatically. The problem was how to light the lamp. Initial thoughts were having some sort of gas, but then you don't want to be changing lighter fuel in the unit or anything like that. You certainly don't want to be piping gas through a workshop like that. So having, like, you know, gas supply to every bench, that wasn't really going to happen. And then I thought about electric cigarette lighters. This was some time ago when they were quite new, and so got hold of one of these. Little spark. Thought, great, that'll light up. So I went on Alibaba. It wasn't even AliExpress at the time, hadn't become AliExpress yet. Found these company that made these high voltage generators. So I took a 5-volt supply and would produce, I can't remember what the exact voltage was, but some crazy high voltage. And I thought, great, make a big spark. So what I came up with in the end was this chap here. Now these obviously the electrodes where the spark's going to go. They did have insulating blocks on them, but where it's been sat in my garage, or sat in the shed I should say, they've got damp. So when I went to try it, it wouldn't actually work with these on, because I think they must be porous and they've got damp and they're just shorting out the electrodes. But it's quite exciting. So this little box would sit on the side, press the button, and quite an impressive spark, I think you'll agree. Unfortunately, there's absolutely no power in the spark at all, and it wouldn't light the lamps. So it looked very impressive, but didn't actually work. So it's obviously a big hole in my understanding of spark energy and things like that, because voltage is there, but I guess the power is just so low that it wouldn't light anything. So looked impressive, and as I said, if you put your finger on there, I'm sure you'd know all about it. But a sort of glorious failure. You know, hey ho, you live and learn. And to borrow from Clarkson, which I don't suppose I should really, but on that bombshell, I'll say goodbye for now. So, drop of the good stuff tonight. Cheers, good health.